All right. It's so weird trying to be like a host, it's just, without sounding cheesy. So hello, we have here today with us, we have Kenna McCarthy, who is a defensive midfielder at Christopher Newport University in Newport News, Virginia. And we also have our coach, Jamie Gunderson, who is the head coach there. Kenna, were you on the national championship team?
Yes, I was a sophomore on the team.
Nice. So you have a little jewelry from that year.
A nice little ring, yeah.
Yeah. You don't ever just like flash that in people's faces. I probably would be pretty obnoxious about it.
Sometimes I think the best part about it is that my older brothers like to show it off to their friends.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Did they play soccer too?
Yeah, I have 3 older brothers. We're all 4 years apart, so they have aged out of soccer a little bit. But
Right.
I grew up in a soccer environment. My oldest brother played soccer at Hampton-Sydney.
Oh, cool.
And then my younger 2 just played through high school.
Gotcha. Well, Jamie will tell you that you never age out of soccer because I think he's going to be playing when he's in a wheelchair at some point.
I think I've been forced into retirement the past 2 summers, so I think they're like, you can coach now. You can just be on the sidelines.
Right. Yeah. So Kenna, are you from Virginia?
Yeah, I grew up in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay, cool. And so like at what point when you were, younger, did you decide I'm going to be a college soccer player?
Well, I joined the Richmond United ECNL team at U13, which was their very first year of making it, which was like I was on the youngest team that they had just started. So I felt like at that point was like when I started to dedicate a lot more time to soccer because I was in middle school, so I wasn't like able to run cross country anymore, like do stuff like that. But I would say probably like 8th, 9th grade was kind of when you start to realize that this is what you want to do, because especially once you hit 9th grade, like freshman year of high school, there's so many things that open up to you. And like, honestly, the nature of it is that there's things that you have to give up. And I think that you realize that like it's worth giving up going to like a Friday night football game because you have an away travel game the next day. So I think once you like kind of buy into that is like, it's time. I want to play soccer in college. And I do think there were girls on my travel team that stayed a while because they just like the nature of everything. But I do think it's important at some point to realize like I don't really like this travel soccer isn't what I want to do at that point.
Right. Yeah. So, so you're playing club soccer at a high level, and you're probably traveling most around the country or at least regionally. And so you're exposed to, from a young age, a lot of different players and from all over the place and playing in showcases and that sort of thing. And then you're, eventually exposed to a lot of different college coaches, I'm sure. So, at some point you realized that you had more than one option, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think pretty much like freshman and sophomore year is kind of when you get into like your main like showcases, when they start like advertising you. The ECNL does a really great job of putting you in like in front of these college coaches, especially going to like showcases all over. Like I went to San Diego, like places like that where you find yourself like being exposed. And there was like colleges that would reach out to us because we were on a good team, like sending emails about coming to camp. And I think like you literally learn about colleges that you had no clue even existed at the time. So I think that it's important also is that like there's a college out there for people if they want to put in the work to play. I think that's a good thing to realize as well, because there's a bunch of different levels and also a bunch of different like schools.
Right. So at what point did coaches start talking to you, and when did you start reaching out to coaches? And then like after that, I want to talk about how you started evaluating schools, so that you could figure out which one was the right one for you.
So I would say freshman year was like when you start getting those typical, like freshman year of high school is when you start getting those typical emails like, hey, come to camp. we're having a summer camp, stuff like that. I was not hesitant to like reach out to schools. I just didn't really know like what I wanted to do at the time. I came into college undecided, so if that like my major, so I feel like I didn't really narrow down with that. But I think they started reaching out, freshman year, and then I think like halfway through freshman year is when I started kind of engaging in more emails. But you have a limit to when you can like. Jamie, I could talk to at any point because of Division III, but Division I isn't allowed to reach out directly to you. They can go to like through your club coaches at some point. So I want to say like late freshman year was when a Division I school reached out to one of my club coaches about me, and that was kind of when I was like, all right, like I can start reaching out to people and like buying into this a little bit more.
Right. And so like obviously you had, like I said, more than one option, right? And you had options at Division I and you had options at Division III. And so let's talk about kind of, walk me through the process of picking, what was important to you about soccer, what was important to you about school, and all those other things that kind of played into making your final decision.
So I think like the most important thing is like having the people around you that have seen you play like tell you what level that they think you're going to be able to play at. I think that was a main like a good thing for me, especially like freshman year of high school. I kind of just like sat down with my club coach and was like, where do you see me going? And I know like you seem like you're at an early age and that you can develop a lot, but like I was kind of one of those people that wanted the reality of my recruiting process. I knew I wasn't going to go to UVA. I knew I wasn't going to go to UNC. And I didn't ever really feel the need to like dream, like go to a dream school. I felt like I wanted a realistic thing for me. And I kind of got to the point where my club coach was like, you're probably looking at like a mid D1 school. And that's probably the highest you'll go. And honestly, like I think those are good things to hear. Like obviously everyone wants to hear that they're going to be the best soccer player ever and they're going to go to a top D1 school. But I think it's important, and even my parents were like, they sat down and were like, we're not going to send you to UVA camp. Like, we're not going to do this because you need to like realize that it costs money in the recruiting process. Like it costs money for that stuff, but also like you want to be seen by coaches who are like going to see you. So I think that was an important part. Narrowing down my search was a little bit harder because I think that there's things that go into your recruiting process where you want them on the campus or like you want them near the campus. So for me, I'm a big beach person. So I was like, I want to be near the beach. I also think school size is a big thing because my freshman year, like spring break, I think I went on like a tour to a bunch of college campuses and I realized like I'm like some of these buildings are like on top of each other. Like this school is so small. Like I don't want to be at a school like this, but I also don't want to be walking a mile to class every day. So I think that was another thing that was just kind of like back and forth for me about deciding. Like I said, I was undecided at the time, so a major didn't really like affect how I wanted to look at a school, but I do think if a school has a good pre-med track or something like that, like something that you could see yourself being interested in, that's another important thing to look at.
Right. Jamie, when did you become aware of Kenna? I guess it was pretty early, I would imagine.
Kenna and I were just kind of talking about this earlier before. So Kenna reached out, I guess sophomore year, I think it was. And I had seen her. It was kind of the time period where I was still the assistant coach under Dan. So kind of in that phase of Dan committing Kenna to at the end of it. But so sophomore year, I think it was like a castle tournament, but then I think I saw her at a more local tournament in BDA, Northern Virginia, where again I was at the younger fields just going to look at people who had emailed us. And that's where things kind of sparked our interest. I was like, okay, like there's something here. And then, kept corresponding from there and then told Dan about Kenna. And then that's when then Dan kind of took over the reins from there kind of thing. And then, saw her a few more times and then had her come for a visit. And then Dan again offered her a spot. And then Kenna committed, which has been great. And then, she'll be a senior this fall. And had a great career here so far.
Yeah, unfinished. So let's go back to like D1 versus D3 for you. Like what, I'm sure, everyone is like, oh, I got to be a D1 athlete, all that,
So D1 versus D3 now, like honestly now seems a lot different to me than at the time because I've experienced it. Like, so I'm on a Division 3 school, obviously, and I realized like there are things I can do outside of soccer. I have a job on campus. I run a club. Like I do a lot of things, and I think that was an important thing to me. But I'm also a very like social person, so I know everyone says when you go to a D1 school, you kind of give away your social right, but that was kind of another thing for me is like I wanted to be able to do like other things at the time. And if that's like if you're looking to do the complete opposite and you're dedicated to that, then like that's why you choose a Division 1 school. But I do think that when I was like in my recruiting process, like I didn't really get caught up in the like Division 1 versus Division 3 stuff like that, but I think that people do get caught up in that, and that's like probably the hardest part is that there are people around you that are going to be like, oh, you're going to a Division 3 school, like you're whatever. But I think once you buy into the level that you're going to play at, then it doesn't really matter. I think a big thing for me now is that compared to the other girls on my club team, none of them have won a national championship. None of them have 2 conference rings. And I think that's another like key thing is where you're going to be successful. And I think if you can go to a Division 1 school where you have a realistic shot of winning a national championship, it's worth it. But if you don't, then continue to increase the level somewhere else.
Right. I had a question. Now I kind of lost it. How did your parents guide you through all this? I mean, I know you have older brothers and everything, but specifically you, what was their role?
So I know it sounds kind of bad to say, but my parents kind of just took a step back and let me do what I wanted to do. They did have to kind of pry on me a little bit to look at colleges and look at my answer, like look where my options were, because I am kind of one of those people that I see something, I'm going to go after it and I'm going to just do it. And they didn't want me to do that because an important thing that they always tell you in your recruiting process is if you got injured, what would you still want to be on that campus? And I think my parents did a really great job in like preaching that to me. It was like, don't pick a school because the Division 1 coach likes you and you're going to get all this gear and stuff like that. It was where you're going to be happy. And that was a big thing for me. So I think them just letting me do it basically was the best thing that they could have done. I know that there's a lot of people who have their parents more involved, and that's okay because if you want to have your parents involved, like in the end, like it's their money pretty much paying for college and stuff too. So I think that's important that you keep your parents in the loop, but I do think it's important for you to kind of take the reins of doing it yourself because in the end, it's you who's dedicating pretty much their college 4 years to playing on a soccer team and like putting in the effort. And like I said from the beginning, like freshman year of high school, you realize that there's things that you have to give up, and it's even more things in college that you have to give up. But that's like something that's on you. Like my parents aren't going to be able to feel the effects of giving up going out on a Friday night. So I think that was an important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hit on that the other podcast that we did, Scott, about with the parents and stuff. Like some, on my perspective, is like some are involved. There are some that are heavily involved, and then those are kind of starting to raise, okay, what's where the red flags kind of thing is. I think there is a balance where they can be involved, but for us as coaches, we like to see again the recruit take the initiative to do a lot on their own because again, at the end of the day, that shows interest in us. It shows maturity. It shows that this is a place they really want to be, or / they've done research on their own kind of thing. And sometimes they do need guidance with that. But again, I think there is a balance with a parent being involved, or / them kind of crossing that line where it's like, okay, I'm not recruiting you, but we want this to be a good fit kind of thing. And what does that really look like?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just all about a balance and how much the kid, I'll use the word kid because it's a high school kid, is willing to take on themselves, and that says a lot to you guys as coaches, as well as the initiative they're willing to take. What about your visit? Do you remember? Can you remember that far back to your?
I'm not that old yet. I think we established I came in 2019. I was a high school graduate in 2020, so my junior year, pretty much, I came on campus. I was an hour and a half away, so it was pretty easy to get me on campus. But I came here, and I came out to one of the practices. I just think this is a funny story, but there was a freshman at the time that everyone thought was hilarious, but also that she was a little out there and crazy, and everyone's like, who's staying with this person? And I was like, me. Is that going to be a problem? And they were like, no, you're going to have a blast with her. And I was like, okay, like, this is good. I think getting on campus in your recruiting process is probably one of the most important things. Seeing the campus in general is just like driving through it isn't really going to do the justice. I know it kind of stinks to say, but you kind of have to do that long tour through campus of the classes and the dorms and everything. It takes a while, but it's worth it in the end. So I did that, and then I came and talked to Dan and Jamie, and then I just got to stay with the girls, and I pretty much didn't see like Dan or Jamie the rest of my visit. And it was kind of just like I was here, I was a part of the team. The girls are so good about making everyone feel welcome at that time, and I think our team is still really good at that. Like, we're like, well, if you come here, like, this is what we do, and you get to go to the dining hall, you get to stay overnight with the team. We played like sand volleyball the night that I was here one time too, so that was fun. But also that was my official visit, but one of my visits here, that was when I was already committed, but one of my visits here, I was really cool because our men's basketball team was in the Final Four, and so I got to go sit in like one of the ballrooms and watch it on a big screen, and they had like nachos for everybody and everything, and I was like, this is so cool, like, this is fun, and I got to hang out with the team. So I think probably one of the most important things is when you do get on campus, like, seeing how you would fit in with the team. Like, are these girls inviting to you? Because I know that I had friends go to schools and they felt like the team was just like awkward to be around, and I was like, well, if they're not good with new people, then like, how do you think they're going to feel when you come in as a freshman? Like, you're just going to be friends with your freshmen, and that's not how I felt here.
Yeah. So what do you think, like, the one or the like 3 or 4 things were that convinced you that CNU was the right place for you? And you mentioned, like, if you blew out your knee your very first training session, with the team, what made you feel like I'm going to be happy at this school?
So a few things. I think one thing that really stood out to me was with Dan and Jamie, especially, they were so consistent in their like reaching out, and it was kind of like, we want you, this is where you stand with us, like, this is how you're gonna fit in. And I think with some of the Division I schools I talked to, they were like, well, we'll continue to evaluate you. One of them told me, like, I see you fitting in great here, but I don't know how much time you're gonna get on the field, stuff like that. And like, those are like hard conversations that you have to have, but like, if I wanted to go be on a D1 roster, like, I could have, but that's not like what I wanted to do at the time. And I think it was so important that like you realize the communication between you and your coach, like how it is during the recruiting process is also how it could potentially be when you're on their team. Like, are they open to having those hard conversations with you? And like, are they open to making sure that you feel like you're wanted there, that you're not just an addition to their roster, like you're actually a player that they like see doing well at their school. So I think that was my number one thing. Like, around here, I always say this to people, it's kind of cliche, but once you get on campus, it's hard to say no. So when I got here, I realized like I just enjoyed being here, and I think that was another big thing for me. Once you get around the girls, if you think getting here is hard, once you get around the girls and you see how like tight knit everyone is, it's pretty much impossible to say I don't want that, because you do. Like, you want to be with your friends, and you realize that like you make friends immediately when you get here, because I had people that I talked to on my visits, and then they were on the team when I came here, and we were just like automatically friends. So it's just like felt like home. I know that's so cliche to say, but it did. And then I think the last thing is if you're going to be successful at the school that you choose to go to. So like I said, when I was picking a school, I saw that we were I didn't vision my junior year of high school that we were going to win a national championship, but I knew that we had a good chance of competing for a national championship. And I think that was always an important thing to me. Is just my high school team was never good. I was never going to win states. We didn't have anything like that for ECNL. Well, we did, but my team didn't get there. So it was stuff like that where I was like, I want that feeling of getting that, all that hard work that you've worked for an athlete, that top tier level. And so I saw that here. And I also saw the things that I was getting from the coaches here that you will make an impact. We see you playing in this position, stuff like that. And I think that's probably another thing that came along with that.
Yeah. And so did you start playing right away as soon as you got?
Well, my COVID year that was kind of a difficult time, but I think it kind of made us who we are. We talk about this all the time, but the COVID running year was probably the worst thing ever. And we'll make jokes about it. We still make jokes about it to this day.
That's what you guys call it, the COVID running year.
But yesterday we even had a conversation. We were we all just we came in and we just bought into the running, and it's kind of how it happened. So I wouldn't say that I was a player.
You guys ran a lot? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because we couldn't.
We were restricted to how many days we were allowed to train, but they allowed us to, on the days we didn't have soccer balls, to run. So a weird time, as you know, but
yeah,
that's the parameters I was given. So myself, I make the best of whatever situation. Here it is, and you know, I can't speak enough about that time with the group that we had, and how committed, and again, they never balked at anything. I know there were some hard days for sure, but it was an experience, and honestly, I think it did make us better. And again, the next year in 21, you know, we won the national championship. So I don't know if there was correlation there. I don't know, maybe, but yeah, that was a weird time. But go ahead, Kenna. Sorry.
Yeah, so we did a decent amount of running. We'll call it that. But I think it kind of led us into a persistent thing. I remember leaving here in the spring, and I was I need to keep running. That's what we've been doing all spring. There's no point in stopping now. And I know everyone worked hard over the summer to get to that point. So I came in my sophomore year. Personally, I'm a pretty self-aware player, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm the best on the team or anything, but I think I'm not a very flashy player. So coming in, we didn't have a real season or anything, so I knew I wasn't guaranteed that starting position right away. Definitely worked for it a little bit. So my sophomore year, I think I started around 14, 15 games. So making an impact just when I can. There was times later in the year where there was different matchups in the midfield that we needed to kind of cover. And I realized that important thing with our team is that next man up mentality, or what's best for the team. And so that's kind of I faded out a little bit later in the season, that there were girls who were starting and playing the whole game, and we didn't sub in my position at all. And so that was kind of one of those things where it's tough, but you also realize that you're here for a more important reason at the time, as well as being a good teammate, and that you can make an impact somewhere else on the field. And you have to be able to challenge your teammates in practice. And so us going into late December was all of us practicing however many times a week. It was everyone working hard. So it wasn't just those 11 players that were on the field at the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can kind of see why you guys won a national championship. You guys had some serious character and fortitude and resilience going that COVID year. And then you have players like Kenna who just want to win no matter what the cost. So that's awesome. Yeah. So how did you, let's delve into that a little bit. How did you handle kind of not being the man, so to speak?
I think it was definitely hard, mentally at times, but Jamie and Sean were really good about talking to me about it. So I think the most important thing is when you have a problem with something, you need to say something about it. And Jamie and Sean were able to listen to me complain or something like that. But also there was one weekend where I had been playing like nonstop all season, and I think we got to the Sweet 16 or round of 32, something like that. And that was the first game that I had never stepped on the field for. And like Jamie knows that that's like mentally tough on a player. So they brought me in like Monday when we got back, and they were like, this is what our thought process was. Like, we're not like punishing you. I don't want you to feel this way. But I think the most important thing that Jamie and Sean said to me at the time was, we need you to be ready when you're called upon. So I maybe was never called upon, but honestly, that could have been a good thing, because that means that our two defensive mids were strong and successful. But it comes a time where I still had that like drive and fire under me that was like, if my team needs me, like I have to be ready to go. And the next weekend we were in Chicago, and it was freezing. Or was it Chicago? Cleveland. Yeah.
We played Chicago.
One of the C's, yeah. And it was freezing rain, and I couldn't feel my feet. And the only thing I could think about was, if they needed me to go on right now, I can't feel my feet. Like, that was the only thing. I wasn't worried about, like, how I was going to play. It was, I cannot feel my feet. And so I think that, like I said, just the mentality was hard of it. But I also realized that there's other things that you can do on a team to be successful. I was always talking to the like other people in my position, and honestly, we all learn from each other. And I know people are like, yeah, we help each other out, but our like little group of like 4 at the time was super like supportive of each other, and everyone wants to be that big man, like you said. They want to be on the field during the national championship, but like, there's things that you see on the sidelines that you don't see when you're playing, and having like kind of that aspect. One of like kind of the things that I like pride myself in as a player is like my like knowledge for the game. I was gonna say smartness. I don't think that's a good word, but my knowledge for the game is like very like, I just enjoy being around soccer and having a high IQ. Might not be as successful in the classroom for our team, but I am successful with knowing stuff that has to do with soccer. So like position changes, like who to mark up when we're pressing, stuff like that has always just come very like second nature to me. Sometimes I feel like I don't give people on our team a chance to answer questions when Jamie asks, because I'm always the first person to just say it because it just comes to mind. So I think that when I wasn't on the field, that was kind of where I prided myself in like helping people, and still like having to feel like I had a role on the team.
Yeah. Jamie, when you were recruiting Kenna, when did you realize that she like had this kind of attitude, or was she this mature back then, or did she kind of grow?
It probably wasn't until she was here, to be honest. And you know, she talks about her kind of playing career and how that, you know, that season went along. But Kenna handled that as good as you could have handled that situation, because you joked about me still playing forever kind of thing. So I feel like that I've been through kind of those ups and downs, and or ups of being like, okay, yep, I'm in, and then now it's taken away from you. And I've been with coaches that don't really kind of explain or kind of like go out of their way. We wouldn't have been where we were in the season we won the national championship without Kenna. Because from the beginning, she didn't miss a beat kind of thing. Then later in the season, things, matchups start changing, calls for different personnel kind of thing. And I can't speak more highly of how Kenna handled that situation and how good of a teammate she was during that time. And honestly, I think that helped the people that were playing in front of her, because one of the players was a younger player, and so taking on that responsibility as a younger player, taking a role of kind of an upperclassman, could be intimidating. But with Kenna kind of in the back corner for them, really helped, and honestly probably helped the team more than Kenna even knows, or than she gives herself credit for. And then, so that moment right then, and again, we've had multiple conversations with Kenna. Like again, my door's always open, and that's how we operate here. And she's never come in and asked like, why am I not playing? It's always like, what do I need to do to get more playing time? Like, what can I do? And that mindset right there is just like, okay, there's something in her that's bigger than a lot of people.
Right.
And then this year she was named captain. She hasn't mentioned that, and that's a peer vote. That's from her peers, from their teammates. So the way we operate with our, again, with the culture of the team is that our captains are voted on by the team. I do have the final say, but most of the time, actually all the time, it's in line with what I would see would be best fits for our captains. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, again, she just has handled herself really well, and couldn't be more proud of her. And then, again, the soccer IQ, yes, she has one of the highest soccer IQs on the team, which is great. So she's like a on the field kind of coach, kind of sometimes too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, are you, like, when the day she graduates, are you going to fire Killian? Kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. I did get asked by Cheese if Jamie in 20 years was gone, if I would come back and coach. So the joke has been made before.
Okay, good. So I'm not Cheese. Leave it to Cheese to
Cheese will go his way to say that. I honestly think Kenna would be a great coach. I know she's doing other things with her major with communications, but I think she would be a great coach.
Yeah. I think it's this is a really interesting case of like a player, having this character within you that doesn't you don't have to be a talented soccer player to have that kind of character, and that stands out to coaches. And like when you're being recruited, the more you can exhibit that and demonstrate it, then the higher you're going to move up on their list to be recruited, and it's going to open up more doors for you.
Yeah, I would say along that, when you're like in high school and on club teams, like kind of your attitude on the field, how you react to get taken off, to being subbed off, how you react to being on the sidelines, how you react to not starting the game, because coming in off the bench is probably one of the greatest things that you can do, because you know what the team looks like, you're going in and you're pretty much just playing your game. You don't kind of have to brace for impact those first 10 minutes and see what's going to happen. So I think that's another important thing when you realize you want to play in college is your attitude on the field. There's times where Jamie will ask us about people that we've played club soccer with, like previously, and how they are as a person. And I think that's kind of another thing that's so important in the recruiting process, is that coaches are looking for good players, but they're also looking for good people. And how you like showcase your personality to a coach is super important. So when you get taken off the field, are you going to pout on the sidelines, or are you going to jog off, high five your teammate and tell them good luck, stuff like that. So I think that people should take pride in their attitudes on the field, because it can go a long way no matter what.
Yeah, great answer. So talk about, I imagine, being a leader on the team, you've hosted a few recruits on campus there. I imagine Jamie probably leans on you a little bit for that. So maybe give me some examples. Most likely, Jamie's not bringing in people who are going to be an issue, but like people who really, really impressed you, and then maybe someone who, and obviously don't use names, but like kind of some behaviors that have been exhibited that made you question whether they'd be a fit for your culture there.
I think an important thing when you come on campus is asking questions. I know, like, when people are like, do you have any questions? And you're like, I don't think so. But when you're with the team and you're in a spot where you can ask questions that you wouldn't normally get an answer to around the coaches, I think that that's super important, because it shows that you care, that it's not just soccer to you, that you're coming here for other reasons as well. So when people ask about my social life, or they ask what I do on a Friday night, what does the team do, what do you guys like to do when you don't have homework or when you're doing this? I think that that's an important thing. Some like red flags, I would say, when you're on a visit. This is kind of funny that you asked because I have probably walked around 40 recruits since I've been here. And I honestly enjoy doing it because you get to kind of show how much you like being here. I always get the casual question from the parents is why you chose CNU. And I think that question is obviously granted a well thought out answer, but if there are players who want to, or if there are recruits who want to know things, I think it's important to ask, and parents can ask questions as well. But like we said previous in this, is that you can't have the parents constantly driving the questions. And so, especially when you get that time alone with the team, that you need to make sure to ask questions and just like feel comfortable with them, because we're not like judging what you're saying or anything. And I'm a junior now, so most of these girls are 4 years younger than me, which can be intimidating at the time. But honestly, I personally have their best interest in mind, because if they're a good soccer player and they're a good person, then they're going to fit in here and they're going to continue to grow the program. So I think that that's important. Another like kind of thing that I would like shy away from is just not being yourself. Like trying to act like you're something more than you are, because putting on like a mask and coming to a school that you could potentially play at or spend time at your next 4 years, kind of the way you make a first impression is important. Because I could be, not that someone's done this, but I could be with the team and be like, well, that girl on her recruiting visit told me she was going to come in and start at center forward. Like having an attitude like that is like, I'm better than anyone that's on your team now, stuff like that. Is just like, that's not what the team wants to hear. And also it's a hard thing to recover from, definitely, because stuff spreads fast, if I'm being honest. So I'll be like, that girl on her recruiting visit told me this, so I don't really know how I'm going to feel about her the first few weeks of preseason. So I think just like setting those first impressions can be nerve-wracking, but you need to make sure that you make it clear like who you are as a person, because at that point I have no clue how you are as a soccer player. Jamie and Sean know. I have no clue. So I want to know like how you are as a person, and if I would enjoy going to sit in the dining hall with you when you were here, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure you're a good reader of people. I get the sense that Jamie relies on you for a few things within the team. Yeah. Just thinking. So, like, you mentioned something interesting when you're talking about talking to recruits. It's like, I've never heard anyone say this. Like, you actually think about carrying on the legacy of what you feel like CNU soccer is.
Yeah.
And so it's super important for you to feel comfortable, and obviously Jamie and the staff, but like it's important for the recruit to feel comfortable that they can, carry on that legacy. And you brought up something else that I was thinking about the other day, and it's important kind of in life, and like being yourself and being somewhat vulnerable in the situation, so that people that you're with get a true read on you, and you get a true read on what the situation's going to be like. And Jamie, I'm sure that you see people come in your office and they're trying to impress you, and they're not quite painting the most accurate picture of themselves.
Yeah, I mean that happens, and when Kenna, I like having them meet the team, because then I get their opinion on who they really are, not being around us too, because they could be a completely different person in front of us, kind of thing, versus staying overnight with the team and hanging out with them, and it's like, okay, this person did this, and it's like, okay, then that kind of changes maybe the direction. Or they're like, oh, she's great, she's going to be a great fit for the team, and it's like, cool, checks that box, she's a good player, and then it's kind of a done deal from there, kind of thing.
Right.
So
yeah, cool. All right. What else you guys got? What's been great about playing at CNU, Kenna?
A lot of things, honestly. That's kind of a tough question to answer.
That was kind of a silly question now that I think about it. But
no, it's not. Like, I don't think it's silly. I think that probably, I know this is probably going to sound super cliche, but some of my best memories and times have been because I'm a member of the women's soccer team, and a lot of us take pride in being members of the women's soccer team. I feel like that's probably the first thing I tell my professors on the first day of classes. If I have a fun fact about me, it's that I'm on the women's soccer team. And so I think that that's kind of the best thing, is just generally being on the team. I have 30 something best friends no matter what. And I think that a lot of teams talk about how close they are, and I could sit here and say that I'm best friends with everybody on the team. But the truth is, like, you find your friends, and then you find your best friends, and then everyone just comes together, and it's like we're all best friends at the time. And obviously, like, I think probably one of the greatest things about our team is that I'm a junior, so I wouldn't say that only the junior class is friends and only the senior class is friends. Obviously, you live with people on the team and you're going to establish closer relationships with your roommates or stuff like that. But I have a few of the freshmen that I hang out with religiously, and it's stuff like that where it kind of goes a long way, is just the relationships you build on the team. So I would say playing soccer that's the best part, is the relationships you build. But the honest soccer aspect of it is that practice is the highlight of my day. I am looking forward to 3:00 at pretty much any time, because we get to go out there and we talk about how serious we are, but there there are times where we joke around, and then we know when it's time to switch on, it's time to switch on. And I think that that's another really great aspect of our team, is we have fun when we want to have fun, and then we are serious when we need to be serious. And I know that the serious times don't seem like they're always fun, but those are the reasons that we're successful. Not to brag a little bit, but I'm going into my senior year undefeated. I haven't lost a real loss of a game. So I think it's important that's why we're so successful, is because we know when to have fun and we know when it's time to be serious.
Yeah, that's an incredible record, actually.
What would you, favorite memory besides winning the national championship, would that be? Or is it the trips that we take? Is it the hotel? What would you say would be your favorite memory that you have so far?
It's not the hotels, because when we were in our national championship run, we were in a basement of a hotel the night before the national championship. So we all like to make a joke about that. It's just hard to pick just one. I was thinking about the other day when we went to California last year, my sophomore year, how much fun that was. And we were there for 3 days. So we were jam-packed, just all together, trying to do everything possible, play 2 soccer games, and have a good time. And I think that I was just thinking back to the times in the vans where we were just all together, just talking. I think that that's a good thing to look back on. I would say, man, now I'm stumped at this. If I had to pick one memory, I don't even know. I see, this is super weird to say, because you guys are what, but the bus ride home after we won the national championship was probably more fun to me than winning the national championship, because no one was doing anything but singing, talking, doing everything, and we were just messing around. So then nature of that. So if I had to pick an overall favorite memory in general, would probably be the bus rides. And I know that's but whenever we come home, we get food and we get to eat the food, and then we all get to sit there and have a good time. So I would say that that's a positive memory in my mind. But honestly, there's so many events that have taken place in my, I guess, 3 years, but 2 years technically because of COVID, that I would never trade for the world. And I think that obviously winning a national championship is at the top of that, but there have been so many practices and games in practice where I'm wow, I love that game. Like we all are so competitive with each other. Yesterday we were playing this game called baseball, and Jamie just basically kicks the ball out and you try to shoot it, and if it goes over and you catch it, then the team's out. It's stuff like that. And we had 2 of the seniors come back for spring just to play with us because we were running low on numbers. And when someone kicked the ball over and my team ended up winning, and I had like 3 of the seniors on my team, and they were like, we go out with a win of like baseball. Like it's stuff like the games like that where it's like you think about those games forever. And so we play like bumpers and stuff like that. It's just a bunch of different games. And I think that those moments are the ones that make you realize like this is why I still play soccer, and this is why I gave up the things that I did, and this is why I like being on a team here, is because you get to have fun while being successful.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's like, it speaks to how important it is to being really thorough and checking out where you want to go. It's interesting. We literally just had this conversation yesterday with Cheese and Bobby. I don't know if you know Bobby O'Brien, Kenna, but he was saying that, he still has group chats from when he played, 20 years ago or whatever, and they go back 20 years, like players that were 20 years before him and 20 years after him, just because everyone's so connected in the program. And he brought up a story about someone being interviewed, and they were like, it was a basketball player, I think, and it was the last press conference that this guy was doing, and the reporter asked him, what are you going to miss most about playing college basketball? And he goes, dinner. He goes, I'm going to miss dinner with my teammates. He's like, that was the most fun and the most, team bonding, and I'll never forget those times. So like your bus ride,
Yeah, I mean, I could have mentioned dinner as well, because we all go to the dining hall after every practice and we sit there probably for hours. And we have our own table. Like everyone knows that that's the women's soccer table, and if someone's sitting at the table, then we're all going to be pretty angry. And so we all sit at one really long table, and it's just like yelling. We're so loud back and forth with everybody. But like you said, those are the moments that you remember the most. You don't remember winning this game at this time in this moment, but you remember like those memories.
Yep. Cool. I think that's a great spot to wrap up. You guys have training today?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we go Monday, Wednesday, Fridays.
Gotcha. And you play a match this weekend?
And play Saturday. Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna hit stop real quick.